Hey guys, this is Suraj here from Random Tales. Today we're going to talk about what is audio engineering and what are the different branches that is under an audio engineering stream, and also who is this person who is being termed as an audio engineer. Without a much further delay, let's directly get into the topic. Now, audio engineering is a stream that deals with the term audio. The terminology itself sort of describes itself. Here, an audio engineer is a person who helps music producers, music directors, composers, singers, individual talents like, anyone who's coming up with an album or who's coming up with a single, who's a DJ. These people, so-called audio engineer, help all of these talents with a lot of technical terms and jargons that are there in the audio industry. What do I mean by the technical terms and jargons? Now, a music producer or a music composer and so on, individual talents might be very good at creating stuff, but they might not be as good as, putting it onto a digital board. What do I mean by a digital board here? It's called a mixer, where a lot of audio engineers sit around and balance the volumes, add some reverb, delay to it. Now, all of these technical terms, such as I used, which is a mixer, reverb, delay, the music producers or the music composers may not be much familiar. They might be a bit of a familiar where they can use it up to an extent, but then to make it sound much more tight and much more in a pleasant manner, much more giving it a lot of intense depth and concentrate on these sounds to the finest particle, you need an audio engineer because he's the one who's been trained for almost a year or two and also with a lot of experience. So this person technically helps all of your composers, music producers, etc. when it comes in terms of DAW, recording, mix mastering, and so on. Now, what are the various streams that fall under an audio engineer is, the first one is a recording engineer. Now, why do you need a recording engineer? Because this person is the right person to understand what microphone or what DAW or what mixing board that the artist should record on, because each recording criterias meet different demands. Now, what do I mean by this is, you would need a sort of a condenser microphone for you to record in a studio. You don't use much of a dynamic microphone. You use dynamic microphones in live performances and stuff. So who decides all of this thing? It's purely, it goes to an audio engineer, especially who's trained for recording. Now, what does this recording engineer does is, he records various instruments, could be an orchestral. He would be the person to record the lead singer and the lead male and the female singer. He'll be the person to sort of record drums or any individual guitars that the track demands for, and he would be the right person on choosing various different microphone techniques. Like, to record a guitar, there are various microphone techniques such as XY pattern and all of these things, which a normal music composer or a music producer would not know about it, right? Or even the guitar player who plays would not know about it. Usually what a guitar player would think or a guitar player would understand is, they might take a line out from the guitar directly to record it, but then you can also mic it out using a couple of different miking techniques and strategies, which would give a different sound altogether when you record them using different microphones and different patterns of miking them. Then comes helping hand for a music producer. Now, what is this sound engineer does is, he helps a music producer in arranging the tracks, in making sure that this particular sound fits in well with this. Most of the time the producer does this job, but on very intense cases, for example, let's say movies like Avengers Infinity or the Endgame, you just don't have a music producer sitting there and giving you guides, but there's also a sound engineer who says, this sound frequency does not go well with the other sound, or the other sound does not fit in well with this because the frequency of this and that is clashing together. Now, this is a sort of a programmer who who's also a sound engineer, who gives guidelines to a music composer or a producer who's been arranging or who's been resampling or who's been layering multiple sounds. Once you do all of these layering and multiple sounds, then you need to send it to a sound engineer or an audio engineer who mix and masters it, right? Now, what is this mix and mastering is? Mix and mastering is an audio engineer who balances all the sounds that are there, that you've been produced or you've been composed or you've been sampled all this while, and this is being balanced. What is balancing right now? Balancing is something that you make sure all the elements that are there in your track or in your project is all audible, right? It should all be sort of conveyed to people, and the people or the listener should not be like, I heard somewhere, a sort of noise, but I'm not sure if that's what I heard. Shouldn't be like that, right? When you play a track or when you play a project or when you release an album or a single, all the elements or all the instruments in a project or a track should be all balanced, should be all audible, but nothing should be distorted. It should all maintain its level, which is what is called balancing. And then you add multiple effect based processings, such as your time based and dynamic, which could be your reverb, your delay, your compressor, your equalization, and all of these things. Now, to even know what are these things, you have to be an audio engineer, right? Because the finest of the tweakings and the finest of the compressions are done only by a mix and a mastering engineer. Once the mixing is done, then it goes to mastering. Now, what does this mastering engineer or a mastering audio engineer do is he adjusts the level to various different streaming platforms. Now for YouTube, you have LUFS meter that is standard, which is -16 to -14, I believe. And then for Spotify, it has its own level. For Savin and Amazon Prime, or for iTunes, especially mastered for iTunes, has its own peak levels and stuffs like that, which only a mastering engineer would know, right? If you go ask a music composer or a music producer what is the mastering level for an iTunes, they might probably not know most of the times. Any new age music producers would know, because now it's available on internet and on Google, which you can find out easily. But back in the days, there weren't so much of resources that was there in our fingertips, right? Basically, these people used to go to academies and train themselves through various courses like diploma or certificate, etc., to understand all of these things. And then once all of this is done, then it's uploaded to a digital streaming platform. Now this covers in terms of a music related genre. But then let's talk about movies now. In movies, from your live shoot, you need a person as a live recording engineer. What does this live recording engineers? Because when the movie is happening and when there are dialogues that is being interpreted, when an actor or a female lead is telling it to a male lead, you need to capture that, right, as your reference, so that you use that during your dubbing. Because otherwise, during your dubbing, you wouldn't know how the actor has felt it, or how the female lead has felt it, and portrayed the dialogues, right? You wouldn't know all these things. Then that's the reason why you need a live sound recordist who records all of these things for reference. And then you need the same live sound recordings to capture the ambience, right? Because for example, let's say that there's a romantic scene that's happening near a waterfalls. You need to capture that ambient sound, right? And for that, you cannot expect a cameraman to capture it using a DSLR or his own array camera that he's been shooting the film at, right? You would lose quality. For the same exact reason, you need a live sound recordist. Once the movie is done, then you come to dubbing, where you have a dubbing engineer. This person is basically again a recording engineer, but then over here he does not records vocals or a singer. He records various dubbing artists who comes in and who interprets the dialogues on the reference tracks that was being recorded during the live shoot. And then he syncs it with the film, or he syncs it with the video that is being given to him. And then you have a Foley engineer, a Foley audio engineer. Now, what does this Foley audio engineer do? This is a very interesting job actually for persons who like to create things on a day-to-day basis of their life. A Foley engineer is someone who makes sound that looks like it was real, but then he's done it everything off the screen, which is could be artificially, or he could have gone out and recorded it. What do I mean by this is, when you watch a Fast and Furious movie, there are certain places where a car crashes Correct, like the hero would go crash in the villain's car and stuffs like that happen, right? And these sort of sounds are not recorded on the live location. They might be recorded in the live location for a reference point of view, but then you still don't get that much of a quality when you are mixing and mastering it for a movie, right? So this Foley engineer creates these sort of noises and sounds in order to give the audience a real effect or a real feel when they watch the movie. Now, it could be a switch sound that you hear in a movie, which is not recorded during the shoot of the movie, but then a Foley engineer would have added that switch sound during his Foley process. Now, a door opening sound, especially on horror movies, you get this wood crackling sounds, you get a steel sort of sounds, you get the wind noises change, you get the thunder sounds. All of these things have been done by the Foley. Now, how does these Foley engineers come up with these sounds? They either design themselves using various synthesizers like modular and digital synthesizers, or they go out and record the live sound using a very qualitative microphone, which they use it only for these sort of purposes. They record it, they get it back into their studio, drag the audio out of the recorder, put it into a DAW, and they process it as much as possible to regain all the original ambience and the quality that they can max it out, right? That's why you need a Foley engineer. Once this is done, then it goes to a mix and mastering engineer who does not mix only for two speakers over here or for a stereo output. They mix it for 5.1 or 7.1. Now these engineers are specifically trained for these sort of applications where they only mix and master for Dolby 5.1 or 7.1, where you have it in theaters and stuff. These people specifically design and automate sounds. Now in certain movies, when you sit in a theater, if a car is being raising from your left to right, the sound also goes from left to right? Now these are all automations done by the engineer. It's not done by a director or a cameraman. You can't do all that in a camera. Now this is why an engineer sits behind the desk using various mixing decks and various plugins and various technical circuit boards and etc., where he sorts of automates all of these sounds and makes it look much more natural when you look at it in film. Now one bad thing or one sad thing that I feel is we give a lot of importance to the director, we give a lot of importance to the cameraman, we give a lot of importance to all of these art directors and stuff, but we never speak about a sound engineer and what work he goes through. Because imagine you go watch an Avatar movie without the sound, you go watch an Avengers movie without the sound, how blank or how emotionless the movie would be, right? Because you don't get to connect with the movie when you don't hear what the actor is saying, right? It's just a bunch of people doing certain actions which you wouldn't be sure of what are they doing unless and until you hear to what they do, right? So these are the various things that in a movie it takes place. And then now coming to your live scenario, there is also someone called as a live sound engineer. Now what is this live sound engineer does is, the most important thing a live sound engineer does in a live sound is he mixes the show. What do you mean by mixing? Now there are multiple artists on stage and each one of them have microphone, each one of them have their own instruments. When they all play together, it's going to be chaos, right? Because everything is coming at the same amplitude or volume. Everything is coming at same volume, and the listeners who's standing in front of this giant array speakers, he's not sure whom to listen to or what is he listening to, right? So here a mixer or an FOH engineer, which is a front of house engineer, balances the levels of everything, making sure that however his band has been agreed to or however his thought of mixing is at his expertise, he mixes it accordingly, right? For example, if I was an FOH engineer, I would make sure that the vocals are coming a bit loud, and then comes my guitar, and then comes all of the other instruments like my drums and acoustic guitar and the other percussive elements, etc., right? Most of the people would do it that way. Now that is one such stream in your live sound engineer. Then there's someone called system engineer. Now what does the system engineers do is, when you go to live shows, you see big fat bass speakers, you see a long hanging speakers. All of these things just can't be hanged on to the truss pole, or it can't just be put onto the ground the way which is easier for them. Every systems engineer go to the venue one day before. They measure the venue. They make sure that every point or every corner of the venue is covered, so that if the audience is standing at one point of the corner, the audience should not be getting only the reflection sound, they should be getting the straight sound that is coming out of a speaker, right? So they go there and they design it according to the venue, and then they calculate at what height the speaker should be hanged, at what distance should the bass speaker should be kept at. All of these things are taken into consideration, and that is why when you go to a venue, no matter where you stand, you still get the thump of the bass, you still could hear the fundamental sounds of whatever is being played on the stage, right? Now, these two are a very important role when it comes to a live sound engineer, and these two are the only thing that has, when you join as an audio engineer student, you know about. But then there's also a lot of other things like a rigging engineer, like a stage tech engineer. You have someone like a cable management tech. All of these things are also there. Now, what is a cable management tech is, when you go to a live sound, you need a lot of XLR cables, you need a lot of speak-on cables, you need a lot of amp cables or power cables. Now, all of these things can't be maintained by one person, right? So the production house of whoever is hosting the show will have various persons. Like I said, they'll have an FOH engineer, then they'll have a systems engineer, and then they'll have a cables tech manager where he manages only the cables, and then they'll have a stage tech engineer. Now, what is a stage tech engineer is, the artist comes on stage, but they won't come on the stage which is just empty, right? You would need some microphones to be placed, you would need a drum riser to be placed, and the drum kit has to be assembled. You would need a keyboard stand, and for the keyboard you would need DI boxes, which is direct injections. You need all of these things to be set up already, right? Because you don't want the artist to come and wait while you're doing all this. So then the responsibility of this is for a stage tech engineer, where this person makes sure that whatever the artist has asked for, or whatever the artist has demanded or requested for, is all set before the artist could reach the stage, so that the moment they come onto the stage, all they have to is to plug in, and then the FOH engineer will take it from there to start mixing it, right? And then you do need someone who sorts of takes care of the entire thing that's happening, which is like a head engineer, where he'll make sure that the FOH engineer is doing his job, the stage tech engineer's thing is doing his job, right? The systems is being taken care of. These sort of head engineers or the chief engineers, I don't see it majorly happening in our country, which is India, but they do have on the other UK and US, where they have one head engineer who supervises all of these guys. But over here in India, it's majorly the FOH engineer who handles everything, or at many a times it's the systems engineer who does everything. There are also production houses where they might have only the FOH engineer who plays various roles, like he might go set up the stage as well, he might do the efforts as well, he might be the one to also set up the systems as well. And it's not because India has not been transitioned to hiring more employees. It's just that they feel it much more better to trust one person rather than trusting three different people, and to give three different important jobs, right? It's much more pain for them, so they just leave it to one person where he sorts of finishes everything from the start to finish. Now, these are the various things that are there under the stream of sound engineering or an audio engineer. Now, the most important question to y'all is, how do I learn about all of these things? Do I have to go and work at a place, or are there academies, or are there colleges where I could go and learn? Yes, there are academies and colleges, and there are also workplaces that hire you on an internship basis, where they might pay you very less money for the first couple of months, and once you learn your game, they might pay you the actual salary, and they might enroll you as a permanent employee as well. But then I wouldn't suggest you that initially, because most of the people get into these things thinking that it's an easy job, but then once you go, you sort of tend to get a little panicked. So the first better thing for you to do is not go work immediately, but to go learn it somewhere from an academy or an institute or a college that teaches you all of these things. Now, there are multiple things, like you have a BSc in music engineering or music technology, and then you have a diploma in audio engineering, and then you also have various certification courses like advanced, standard sound engineering courses that are available. Now, what are the difference between these three is, one is the monetary point of view. The BSc in music technology or audio engineering is very expensive. The diploma is less expensive when compared to the BSc wala, and then your certificate is even more lesser expensive. And the other difference to all of the between these three is also your modules, right? Like in BSc in music or audio engineering, it's a 3 years course, right? They teach you everything as much as possible in all of these 3 years course. When you talk about diploma, it's anywhere between 1 to 1.5 year. They teach you only the technical stuff of it because that's what diploma is all about, right? They teach you more of technical. They don't teach you, and they won't add unnecessary subjects like development communication or history and all of these things. You go and bang only technicals in and out. From your start of the diploma to the end of your diploma, you would only be learning about electric circuits, how to patch in an XLR cable, how to solder an XLR cable, how to calculate or measure your systems or what distance it's there. All of these things you'll be learning. And when you talk about certification course, this is for person, I would not recommend someone who's entering new into the industry. These are for person, someone like who's got an experience of a year or two and who just wants to brush up his basics again. It's completely meant for this because believe me, if in case you have no experience in this industry and you're a fresher who's from a complete different background, a certification course would not give you that in-depth knowledge, nor would it give you any credentials for you to go further. You might again have to start from the beginning when you go join a company. It's a little pain when you do this. So my recommendation would be either join a BSc if you're monetarily sounding good, or you can go join a diploma course. Let's say that you don't have enough money to join in either of these things. It's you still have an option, like, which is the first option, where you could eh, always approach a production house, go talk to them saying that I'm interested in this field, I want to work as a sound engineer, I want to become a sound engineer. They would hire you on an internship basis where you might first do all the basic levels, where you might start from handling an XLR cable, rolling it up, maintaining the XLR cables, and then you would go step by step, right? You would first join in as a stage tech, then you might become a stage tech engineer, then you might do small shows mixing like 1 or 2 mics like corporate shows, and then you might become an FOH engineer for mixing various bands, and then they might even, you can even, if you're good enough, you can even start doing systems, right? I was one such person who joined up like that. Like, I went to a certification course, started off, didn't learn anything great, then went and joined a company, learned everything from the basics, and also ended up becoming a systems engineer at a production house. But it was very tough. That's why I still don't recommend that. I would only recommend that to the people who has the passion, like crazy level passion, where you're like, anything might come and I will still not give up this. Only for person like that I would suggest doing something like this. If not, please get enrolled in a diploma or and BSc or any degree which audio engineering. uh, I would not suggest any colleges because as I'm not a person who is into college and stuff, so I don't know which college is better than the other college. So I don't think so I'm the right person for you to, tell you or what college is better in Bangalore or in India. So I would leave that to y'all for you to research. You always have Googles, you have reviews, call them up, compare the modules of between A college and B college, know what is that you are exactly looking at, and then figure out what you want to do. And I think by that you would get to a stage where it would clear up your mind and you would be sure about doing what you wanted to do all this while. And right now we're at the end of the topic. I hope I've spoken about what is audio engineering and what are the different streams and how do you also become audio engineering, right? If you have any queries or doubts, do put it in the comment. We'll try replying back to each one of you all personally as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do like this video, please give a thumbs up, and if you still haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And let's call it a day in that case. See you, take care, peace.